The moment Elias Vane smiled, an entire alien empire quietly changed its future. No alarms rang. No fleets moved. No one screamed. But somewhere far beyond human space, ancient laws older than stars themselves locked into place. Elias did not know this yet. He was just trying not to look uncomfortable. The Unity Convergence Hall floated at the center of Alio Station like a jewel suspended in darkness. Delegates from dozens of species gathered beneath transparent alloy domes, where distant suns painted slow-moving gold across the polished floor. The air itself shifted in subtle layers, adjusted constantly to keep everyone alive and comfortable. Elias hated every second of it. He was a human systems architect, not a diplomat. His job was to design adaptive energy grids that kept mixed-species stations from tearing themselves apart. He understood machines. He understood logic. He did not understand social rituals, ceremonial clothing, or why someone would voluntarily attend a political gala instead of fixing something useful. He stood near the edge of the hall, wearing a formal suit that felt too tight around his shoulders, holding a drink he had not tasted. His mind drifted, as it often did, toward work. A power fluctuation in Ring C. An efficiency drop no one else had noticed yet. Then the crowd shifted. Elias looked up, and forgot to breathe. She stood across the hall, surrounded by beings that carried themselves with disciplined precision. Tall, graceful, unmistakably alien. Her skin shimmered faintly, like moonlight on water. Long silver-blue hair flowed down her back, and delicate ridges curved along her temples, marks of a species humanity had only recently encountered. The Aurelian. They were ancient, powerful, and deeply private. She turned her head slightly, listening to one of her attendants, and her eyes met Elias's. Time slowed. Not dramatically. Not magically. Just enough. Elias felt a strange sense of recognition, not familiarity, but clarity. As if, for one brief second, everything noisy and overwhelming made sense. He did what he always did when unsure how to behave. He smiled. It was not confident. It was not flirtatious. It was human. A simple expression that said, "I don't belong here either." The Aurelian woman froze. Her pupils expanded. Her posture shifted. The attendants around her stiffened, sensing something wrong. Then she smiled back. It was not polite. It was absolute. Something ancient, deep, and irrevocable moved behind her eyes. Before Elias could process it, someone brushed past him, breaking the moment. Voices rose. The music swelled. When he looked again, she was gone. Elias exhaled and shook his head. Great, he thought. Now I'm imagining things. He finished the drink, slipped out of the hall, and returned to the comfort of humming machinery and predictable systems. He slept peacefully that night. The galaxy did not. 3 systems away, in the crystalline capital of the Aurelian Concord, Princess Serelith knelt before the mirror of continuance. The chamber was silent except for the faint resonance of energy flowing through the ancient structure. Advisors stood in rigid formation, their faces pale. "You are certain?" the high voice asked carefully. Serelith rose, her expression calm but radiant. "I am bonded," she said. A wave of shock rippled through the room. "That is impossible," another whispered. "No signs. No rituals. No preparations." "I recognized him," Serelith replied simply. "The bond does not ask permission." The high voice swallowed. "The male. His species. Human." Silence shattered into chaos. Aurelian law was clear. A bond, once recognized, was destiny. It shaped alliances, ended wars, redirected civilizations. And humanity, young, chaotic, underestimated humanity, had just been placed at the center of Aurelian fate. Elias learned none of this until the next morning. He was halfway through recalibrating a gravity stabilizer when station security arrived. Not rushing. Not aggressive. Too calm. "Elias Vane," the lead officer said. "You are requested for diplomatic escort." Elias blinked. Did something break? The officer hesitated. No. That was worse. They led him through corridors he had never entered before, into a chamber designed to impress and intimidate. Alien materials. Starlit ceilings. Silence heavy enough to feel physical. And there she was. Princess Serelith. She smiled when she saw him. Not radiant this time. Gentle. Certain. You came, she said. I didn't really have a choice, Elias replied honestly. A flicker of amusement crossed her face. I saw you, she continued. In the hall. You saw me. I smiled, Elias said cautiously. I do that. Her eyes softened. Among my people, that was a declaration. His heart skipped. Of what? Recognition, Serelith said. Of unity. Of bond. Elias laughed once, sharply. That's not how humans. I know, she said. That is why it matters. The advisors watched him like predators studying prey, or allies measuring worth. You do not feel it yet, Serelith continued. But you will. Elias stared at her, then at the room, then at the stars beyond the window. The universe had not exploded. But it had shifted. And for the first time in his life, Elias realized something terrifying and exhilarating. Humanity had just been seen. Elias Vane did not panic right away. First, his brain did what it always did when facing something impossible. It tried to turn the situation into a system. A problem with rules. A misunderstanding that could be corrected if he found the right manual and followed the proper steps. He cleared his throat and forced a calm tone. Princess. I think there's been a translation error. Serelith tilted her head slightly, listening as if he had said something charming instead of desperate. There is no error. Elias looked at the advisors. They stood in symmetrical silence, their uniforms woven with shimmering thread that seemed to shift color when they moved. None of them smiled. None of them blinked. He tried again. I didn't propose. I didn't agree to anything. I smiled because I didn't want to be rude. Serelith's expression did not change, but her voice softened. Among my people, a true smile is rare. It is not a mask. It is a revelation. That's not how humans work, Elias said. Then teach me, she replied, steady as stone. But do not ask me to deny what I am. Elias opened his mouth, then stopped. He had expected arrogance. Royal pride. Alien superiority. Instead he saw something else. Relief. Like she had been carrying a weight for years and had finally set it down. That made him feel worse. He rubbed his forehead. Okay. Fine. Let's assume your bond is real in your culture. How does it end? At that, one of the advisors inhaled sharply. Another's jaw tightened as if Elias had stepped on sacred ground. Serelith answered calmly. It does not. Elias stared. Nothing ends. Ever. It has never been unmade, she said. Not in our recorded history. His stomach dropped. That's insane. The tallest advisor stepped forward. His voice was formal, precise, and heavy with warning. Human, you stand in the presence of an Aurelian heir. Your words must be measured. Elias looked at him. My words are measured. This is my whole life being rearranged because of a facial expression. Serelith raised one hand, and the advisor stopped instantly. Her gaze returned to Elias. I did not come to harm you. Then why did you announce this? Elias asked. Why not? I don't know. Talk to me first. I could not, she said. The bond is not a request. If I recognized it and stayed silent, I would be lying to my people and to myself. That would fracture my house. Elias felt like he was standing on a floor that was slowly tilting. So what happens now? He asked. Serelith's lips curved faintly. Now you are protected. Elias blinked. Protected from what? One of the advisors answered before Serelith could. From everyone. Elias did not like the way that sounded. The first hint of danger came an hour later. Serelith insisted Elias be escorted back to his workstation, as if returning him to normal life would calm him. But nothing felt normal anymore. Every hallway they walked through had people watching. Not openly. Not obviously. But Elias felt eyes turn, felt conversations pause, felt silence follow him like a shadow. He reached his department, core grid control, and his team stared as if he had suddenly grown horns. His colleague Mara stepped close the moment the escort stepped away. She was a short human with sharp eyes and a habit of speaking like every sentence was an emergency. "What did you do?" she whispered. "I smiled at the wrong person," Elias muttered. Mara's eyes widened. "That was the princess." Elias nodded. Mara made a slow, horrified sound. "Elias, the Aurelians don't do romance like humans do. Their bonds are political weapons." "I know," he hissed. "I'm learning that very fast." He tried to work. He truly did. He stared at the grid readouts, adjusted output flow, signed off on diagnostics. But his hands trembled slightly, and every time someone approached his console, he flinched. By midday, station leadership summoned him. Again. This time it wasn't just an Aurelian chamber. It was the central council room. Humans, Aurelians, and half a dozen other species sat around a circular table so large it felt like a small planet. Flags hovered as holograms over each seat. Translators hummed like insects. And the air was thick with tension. Serelith sat straight-backed, calm, as if this was ordinary. Elias sat beside her, feeling like a tool that had been placed on the table to prove a point. A human official leaned forward first, wearing the forced smile of someone trying not to scream. "Mr. Vane, you are aware this declaration could impact interstellar diplomacy?" Elias looked at him. "I'm aware it has impacted my blood pressure." The official winced. Then a Varaxian delegate, tall, armored, with eyes like polished obsidian, spoke in a harsh tone. "This is a maneuver." Serelith's gaze moved to the Varaxian like a blade. "You accuse me." The Varaxian's throat sacs inflated slightly, a sign of anger. "You bind your house to a young species. You force alliances. You gain leverage." Elias raised a hand quickly. "For the record, I'm not leveraged. I'm confused." A quiet ripple moved through the room. A few diplomats even looked amused. The Varaxian delegate leaned closer. "Humans are unpredictable. Weak in fleet count. Weak in territory. Why choose him?" Serelith spoke without hesitation. "Because the bond recognized him." "That is convenient," the Varaxian spat. Serelith's voice remained gentle. "Truth often is." Elias looked around. He could feel it now. This wasn't about romance. Not to them. This was a power shift. And power shifts make enemies. A different delegate, thin, insect-like, clicked its mandibles. "If the bond is absolute, then House Serelith grants humans access. Access to Aurelian technology. Access to Aurelian security corridors. Access to—" "To nothing," Serelith interrupted, calm as ice. Silence. Elias glanced at her, surprised. Serelith turned slightly toward him and spoke softer. "I will not place you in chains of expectation. The bond is mine to declare. But your life is yours." That was the first sentence she had said all day that made Elias breathe easier. Until the human official added quietly, "Your life may not remain yours, Mr. Vane." Elias looked at him. "What do you mean?" The official's eyes flicked to security. "Because now you are a target." That night, the station tightened. Extra patrols. Locked corridors. Background scans every 15 minutes. It felt like the whole place was holding its breath. Elias was assigned to protected quarters near diplomatic housing. He hated it. It felt like being trapped in a polished cage. Mara visited him anyway, bringing a small bag of human snacks and the kind of look you wear when your friend has walked into a disaster and you're deciding whether to drag them out or push them deeper. "You okay?" she asked. Elias laughed. Humorless. "Define okay." Mara dropped into a chair. "Everyone's talking. Humans are split into two camps. Half think you're the luckiest idiot alive. Half think you're about to start a war. Elias rubbed his face. I didn't want any of this. Mara leaned forward. Then you need to understand something. The galaxy doesn't care what you wanted. The moment the princess said your name, you became a symbol. Elias swallowed. A symbol of what? Mara's voice lowered. Of the one thing the other species fear most. Elias frowned. What? Mara stared at him like he should already know. A human who accidentally changed the rules. Elias sat in silence for a moment, letting that sink in. Then a soft chime sounded at his door. The security panel flashed. Visitor. Princess Serelith. Elias froze. Mara's eyes went wide. She's here. Elias stood slowly. Apparently. He opened the door. Serelith entered without guards, without ceremony. She looked less like a ruler now. No heavy jewels. No formal robe. Just a simple garment that still looked expensive but didn't scream power. She studied Elias like she was trying to learn him properly for the first time. Did you want something? Elias asked carefully. Serelith stepped closer. I wanted to ask your permission. Elias blinked. Permission for what? To speak honestly, she said. Elias hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Serelith's eyes softened. I did not choose this bond because it benefits my house. In truth, it risks everything. Elias stared. Why would it risk everything? Serelith's voice dropped. Because my people do not fear humans for their weakness. Elias felt cold. What do they fear? Serelith looked him directly in the eyes. They fear what you become when you are cornered. Elias opened his mouth to respond. And the lights cut out. Every screen went black. The station's hum died into silence. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. Then the emergency lights flickered red. A siren screamed. Mara jumped to her feet. What was that? Elias's instincts kicked in, sharp and immediate. Grid failure. Power interruption. But the station had 3 redundancies. 4. 5. Unless someone wanted the station blind. A violent impact shook the wall. The door panel sparked. Outside, boots thundered. Metal screamed as something sliced through the lock. Serelith's posture shifted instantly. Her calm evaporated into lethal focus. Elias whispered, "Someone's coming in." Mara grabbed the nearest heavy object like it was a weapon. Serelith's voice was quiet. "They have begun." Elias's heart hammered. "Who?" Serelith stared at the door as sparks sprayed into the room. "The ones who would rather kill a bond than allow it," she said. The lock gave way. The door started to slide open. And Elias Vane realized the galaxy had just tested humanity. The door slid open with a scream of tortured metal. 3 figures poured into the room, moving with trained precision. Their armor was matte black, designed to swallow light. Their helmets reflected nothing. No insignias. No hesitation. Professional. Elias did not freeze. That surprised him later. In that moment, something inside his mind clicked into place, the same calm clarity he felt when a system failed and alarms screamed. Panic never fixed broken machinery. Understanding did. He grabbed Mara and pulled her down behind the heavy workstation desk just as a pulse bolt scorched the wall where her head had been. Serelith moved at the same time. She stepped forward, hands raised, not in surrender but command. A ripple of energy burst outward from her body, invisible but powerful enough to make the air tremble. One of the attackers staggered, his aim thrown off as if gravity itself had shifted. But there were 3 of them. And they had planned for this. One attacker recovered instantly and fired again, not at Serelith, but at the ceiling. The shot hit a structural node, sending fragments raining down. Smoke filled the room. "Cover your ears." Elias shouted, already reaching for the emergency panel embedded in the desk. Another shot exploded against the floor. Mara screamed. Serelith spun, a flash of light wrapping around her arm as she deflected a bolt that would have killed Elias outright. Her breathing was steady, controlled, but Elias saw strain in her shoulders. Whatever power she wielded, it was not infinite. "Elias," she said sharply. "They are shielded. I cannot stop them all." "Then don't," Elias replied, fingers flying over the panel. "Just distract them." Mara looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Distract them with what?" "Me thinking," Elias said. He slammed his palm onto the panel and rerouted power manually. The attackers advanced, boots crunching over debris. One raised his weapon again, and the gravity dropped out from under them. The room tilted violently as localized gravity inverted for half a second. One attacker slammed into the ceiling. Another stumbled sideways, firing wildly. Elias grinned, wild and sharp. "They never update their environmental maps," he muttered. Serelith stared at him, stunned for a fraction of a second. "You did that?" she asked. Elias didn't look up. "I design mixed-species stations. Gravity inconsistencies are a nightmare. I built in flexibility." Mara laughed breathlessly. "I knew your obsession with failsafes would pay off." The attackers recovered fast, too fast. One slammed a device onto the floor. A shimmering field snapped into place, stabilizing gravity. "Adaptive tech." "Okay," Elias muttered. "That's new." The nearest attacker charged. Serelith stepped forward again, light flaring around her eyes. The attacker hesitated just long enough for Elias to overload the lighting grid. The emergency lights burst into blinding white. Sensors screamed. One attacker dropped to a knee, clutching his helmet. The third raised his weapon toward Elias. And Mara smashed a heavy tool into his arm with everything she had. The weapon clattered to the floor. Elias lunged, grabbed it, and fired without thinking. The bolt slammed into the wall inches from the attacker's head. Elias froze, horrified at himself. The attacker froze too. They stared at each other through smoke and sparks. Then the attacker slowly raised his hands. Silence fell. Security stormed in moments later, real security this time. Human and Aurelian guards flooded the room, weapons raised, voices shouting commands in half a dozen languages. The attackers were restrained. The crisis was over. Elias sank against the desk, legs shaking. Serelith walked toward him slowly. "You fought," she said quietly. Elias swallowed. "I didn't want to die." She shook her head. "No. You adapted. You understood the system faster than they did." Her advisors arrived minutes later, faces pale with fury and fear. "This was a declaration," one said. "Someone has openly defied Aurelian law." Serelith turned to them, her calm gone, replaced by something cold and terrifying. "Then let the galaxy hear my response." The response came fast. Within hours, footage of the attack spread through diplomatic channels. Not leaked, released, unedited. It showed assassins violating neutral territory. It showed a bond target. And it showed something no one expected. A human civilian outthinking trained killers. Across the galaxy, analysts replayed the footage again and again. Humans didn't overpower their enemies. They restructured the environment. They turned infrastructure into weapons. Safety systems into traps. Rules into leverage. The Aurelians watched closely. Older than most civilizations, they had survived by controlling information, power, and perception. Humans did not control. Humans improvised. That unsettled them. Elias sat alone later that night, hands still trembling slightly. His protected quarters felt smaller than ever. Serelith arrived quietly, without announcement. "You should not be alone," she said. Elias looked up. "I'm not good company right now." She sat anyway. "I watched the recordings," she said. "I knew humans were clever. I did not know you were dangerous." Elias laughed softly. "I've never been in a fight before today." "That is what frightens them," Serelith replied. "You do not train for war. Yet you learn it instantly. Elias stared at the floor. They tried to kill you because of me. They tried to kill you because of what you represent, she corrected. Elias looked at her. And what's that? Serelith leaned forward. A variable. He frowned. The galaxy runs on patterns, she continued. Predictable responses. Measured escalation. Humans do not follow those patterns. You smile when you should posture. You think when you should panic. Elias sighed. That's just being human. Serelith smiled faintly. Exactly. A chime sounded on Elias's terminal. Incoming message. Priority. Aurelian High Council. Serelith stiffened. They want to see you, she said. Elias blinked. Me. They are afraid, she admitted quietly. And curious. Elias leaned back, exhausted. That makes two of us. Serelith stood and offered her hand. Come, she said. If they are to judge humanity by one human, let it be you. Elias stared at her hand. He took it. And in distant systems, fleets shifted. Alliances recalculated. Because the galaxy had just learned something dangerous. Humanity did not need permission to matter. The Aurelian High Council chamber was not built to welcome visitors. It was built to remind them how small they were. The ceiling rose in layered arcs of translucent crystal, each etched with symbols that recorded decisions older than human civilization. Light passed through the walls like slow-moving tides, shifting color as if the room itself were alive. Every sound carried weight. Every step echoed longer than it should. Elias Vane walked beside Princess Serelith, acutely aware that he was the only human in the chamber. Hundreds of eyes followed him. Some glowed. Some reflected light. Some were hidden behind veils of energy or metal. But all of them watched with the same question. Is this the one? Serelith stopped at the center of the chamber. Elias stopped with her, hands at his sides, posture calm by force of will. He had faced cascading system failures that threatened millions of lives. This felt similar, except the system was the galaxy. The high voice spoke, amplified by the chamber itself. Elias Vane of Earth. You stand before the Aurelian Concord as a bonded figure to our future sovereign. Elias swallowed. I stand here because I was asked. A ripple of reaction passed through the council. Serelith did not interrupt him. The high voice continued. Your presence has triggered unrest, assassination attempts, and diplomatic instability. Explain why you should not be removed from this equation. Removed. Elias understood the word perfectly. He took a slow breath. I didn't seek this, he said. I didn't plan it. I don't benefit from it. But I won't pretend it didn't happen. The chamber was silent. I smiled, Elias continued. Because that's what humans do when we see someone who looks just as uncomfortable as we feel. If that broke your rules, then maybe your rules were already fragile. A low murmur spread. One counselor rose, tall and angular, voice sharp. You suggest our traditions are flawed. Elias looked at them. No. I suggest they weren't built for us. Serelith turned slightly toward him, her expression unreadable. Another counselor spoke, voice colder. Humanity's history is violent. Chaotic. You expand rapidly. You destabilize regions. Why should the Concord risk itself for you? Elias nodded. That's fair. That surprised them. He continued. We are chaotic. Because we adapt faster than we plan. Because when something breaks, we don't wait for permission to fix it. He gestured lightly, not dramatic, just honest. Your assassins came with plans. With training. With certainty. They failed because they assumed the environment would stay the same. The chamber darkened slightly, the walls reacting. Humans assume it never does, Elias said. The high voice was silent for a long moment. Then, there are those among us who demand resolution. Serelith's fingers tightened slightly. An ultimatum, the high voice continued. The bond may remain only if humanity submits to Aurelian oversight. Technological limitation. Cultural compliance. Elias felt heat rise in his chest. Serelith turned sharply. That was not agreed. Elias raised a hand gently, stopping her. He looked back at the council. So this is about control. It is about stability, the high voice corrected. Elias nodded again. Same word. Different meaning. He took another breath. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. You're afraid, he said. Not of us as we are, but of what happens when humans stop trying to fit. A few councillors shifted uncomfortably. You saw the footage, Elias continued. One unarmed engineer nearly dismantled a targeted strike by thinking sideways. Multiply that by a species that learns fast, shares faster, and doesn't stop asking why. The chamber grew colder. You can try to limit us, Elias said calmly. But you can't freeze curiosity. You can't regulate ingenuity. And if you try, humans won't fight you the way you expect. Serelith watched him now, something like or behind her eyes. The high voice finally spoke. Is this a threat? Elias shook his head. It's a warning. From someone who fixes systems before they explode. Silence stretched. Then a councillor from the outer ring spoke, old, voice worn but steady. What does humanity offer in return for this disruption? Elias answered without hesitation. Solutions. The council waited. When your systems fail, Elias said, we don't ask who's at fault. We ask what still works. We don't care who built it. We make it better. He met their collective gaze. We don't want your throne. We don't want your fleets. We want a seat at the table where problems are solved instead of postponed. The high voice considered. Humanity refuses oversight, it said slowly. Yes, Elias replied. And yet you expect trust. No, Elias said. We expect partnership. The chamber shifted again, light pulsing through crystal veins. Serelith stepped forward at last. I declared the bond, she said, voice ringing clear. And I will not unmake it. But hear this, humanity is not my weakness. She looked at Elias. They are my strength. The high voice spoke after a long pause. Then the Concord will decide. The decision did not come quickly. But the galaxy did not wait. News of the ultimatum leaked within hours. Not just to governments, but to people. Human colonies. Independent stations. Fringe settlements. And something remarkable happened. Human engineers began sending proposals. Human scientists offered shared research frameworks. Human logistics experts rewrote supply chains for mixed-species stations overnight. No demands. No threats. Just solutions. Aurelian systems long considered unsolvable suddenly had working models. Energy grids stabilized. Trade bottlenecks vanished. Environmental conflicts resolved, not through force, but redesign. The Concord watched. And slowly, fear shifted into something else. Respect. The final session reconvened 2 days later. Elias stood again in the chamber, tired but steady. The high voice spoke. The Aurelian Concord recognizes the bond. Humanity will not be placed under oversight. A collective intake of breath echoed. Instead, the high voice continued, humanity will be invited into joint systems councils. Advisory roles. Equal voice in infrastructure and crisis response. Serelith exhaled softly. Elias felt his knees weaken, but he stayed standing. You changed the equation, the high voice said to him. Without force. Elias shrugged slightly. That's kind of our thing. A faint ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. But one final voice spoke, from the shadows. This is not over. Elias looked toward it. The galaxy was quiet. But tension remained. Because humanity had been accepted. And acceptance always comes before the real test. The crisis did not arrive with a warning. It never did. 3 weeks after the Concord's decision, while diplomats congratulated themselves and analysts argued over long-term implications, the outer defense network went dark. Not flickering. Not degrading. Gone. Across 6 star systems, navigational beacons failed simultaneously. Trade lanes collapsed into chaos. Ships dropped out of transit blind and screaming, some vanishing forever between gravity wells that no longer announced themselves. The Aurelian Concord called it an anomaly. Humans called it a cascading failure. Elias Vane was halfway through a routine systems review when every alert on his console turned red at once. He didn't shout. He didn't freeze. He leaned forward. "Pull all telemetry," he said calmly to the mixed species operations team around him. "Not just Aurelian feeds. Everything." A junior Aurelian analyst hesitated. "Those channels are restricted." Elias looked at them. "Then this will take longer." The analyst unlocked them. Within seconds, Elias saw it. Not an attack. A resonance. The ancient defense lattice the Aurelians relied on, technology older than most civilizations, had reached a complexity threshold. Too many patches. Too many assumptions layered over forgotten foundations. It wasn't breaking. It was contradicting itself. Elias's fingers moved fast. It's eating its own signal. Feedback loop across dimensional anchors. A senior council engineer stared at the display. "That system has never failed." Elias nodded. "That's why no one learned how to fix it." Across the station, Princess Serelith watched feeds explode into chaos. Ships adrift. Fleets immobilized. Panic spreading faster than light. "Can you stop it?" she asked. Elias didn't look up. "Not alone." She didn't hesitate. "Then take what you need." Elias opened the channel humanity had quietly built over the past weeks. Not a command network. Not a military one. A problem-solving one. Within minutes, human engineers from dozens of systems joined in. Some in uniform. Some in work clothes. Some calling in from stations held together with hope and duct tape. No speeches. No arguments. Just data. Someone in a frontier colony recognized a pattern from a mining grid collapse. A researcher from Mars identified harmonic drift in ancient alien math. A teenager from a civilian habitat suggested a brute force simulation approach because it worked in a game once. The Aurelians watched in disbelief as humans spoke over one another, interrupted, corrected, laughed, and built. No hierarchy. No fear. Just momentum. Elias absorbed it all, filtered it, connected it. "There," he said suddenly. "We don't shut it down." The room froze. "You don't," a counselor demanded. Elias shook his head. "You never shut down a system that doesn't understand stopping. You give it a new rule." He typed one final command. The lattice stabilized, not by returning to its old state, but by evolving. The anchors resynced. The feedback dissolved. The galaxy exhaled. Ships reappeared on scanners. Trade lanes reignited. The stars felt steady again. Silence followed. Then applause. Not human applause. Aurelian. Slow. Deliberate. Reverent. The high voice spoke softly. "You altered a foundational system without dismantling it." Elias leaned back, exhausted. "We didn't alter it. We listened to it." Serelith stepped beside him. "This," she said to the council, "is why the bond chose humanity." The high voice inclined its head. "The Concord acknowledges a truth long ignored." The chamber lights shifted, brighter now. "Strength is not domination," the high voice said. "It is adaptation." Elias closed his eyes for a moment, relief washing over him. Later, much later, Elias stood with Serelith beneath a quiet observation dome. Stars drifted like scattered embers beyond the glass. "You changed everything," she said. Elias smiled faintly. "I fixed something that was broken." She studied him. "Do you still believe the bond was a mistake?" Elias considered the question carefully. "I believe," he said slowly, "that humans don't always understand why things happen. But when they do, they make it better." Serelith smiled, not radiant, not ceremonial. Human. The galaxy will remember this moment, she said. Elias looked out at the stars. Not me. No, she agreed. Your species. Because from that day forward, whenever systems failed, whenever plans collapsed, whenever ancient empires faced problems they could not solve, they asked for humans. Not because humans were the strongest, but because when everything else broke, humans smiled. And then they fixed it.